Hey everybody, this is Tracy here with another edition of A View from Tracy's Point. And today we are doing a afterthoughts after the show, and we will be talking about OWN's new show, Ready to Love. It was a reality TV show produced by St. Pete's own Will Piker, and it was hosted by nephew Tommy from the Steve Harvey Morning Show. So before we get started, I want to let you guys know that after I did my video on does YouTube have a black hole? Why is it taking so long for my channel to get monetized? The next day, my channel was monetized. So, woo-hoo! So thanks for those of you who shared it and who reached out to the YouTube team on Twitter to say, hey, monetize this person's page. It worked. Okay, so I am monetized. I am hearing rumors that YouTube is about to change things up again, but until then, we're going to be happy with this accomplishment that we have. So let's go ahead and jump into this. I guess it's like a year in or season in review because I didn't do the recaps as the show was going on because I'm so tired of getting vested into these shows and then they get canceled after the first or second season. So this show, Ready to Love, it was, I guess, like the black version, the black love version of The Bachelor, but they switched it up a little bit. So how the show differed from The Bachelor is that, on The Bachelor they have like 50 women. I don't know if it's 50, but it's a lot of them. And there's either one bachelor or one bachelorette, and they have all these people to choose from, and then they're all confined to this house, and then they do the rose ceremony and all of that. Well, we didn't have that on Ready to Love. So some people were saying that this was the bootleg version, but I actually like this version of the show because the contestants were actually able to live their lives. They were going to work, living with their families, staying in their own homes. And it was sort of like, I guess you would say, speed dating, because the way it was set up was they started out with 20 singles. There were 8 guys and 12 women. And the first 3 episodes, they eliminated 5 guys. So we were down to 3 guys. And then when the actual competition, I guess you could call it, started, we had each guy would have 4 women, which is sort of like reality when it comes to dating amongst African Americans, is that we have more women than there are men. And so each guy had 4 women, and each week they would eliminate 1 woman to the point where it got down to 3 guys and 3 women. And then those couples had to decide if they wanted to continue seeing each other or if it wasn't a good fit. Now, of the 8 guys that they selected, it was weird. It was weird. But I guess it was like a true representation of men in the black community. They actually had a pastor on there, and this pastor, I was thinking to myself, the way women be after pastors in these churches, I'm not understanding why he was on this show looking for love. But they kicked him off the show. He didn't make it to the final 3. The final 3 guys were Mike, who I think everybody thought was so handsome and so sexy. He was a big guy, but he had like a big round head. But I think Mike, of all the guys that were on the show, probably represents the type of guy that I am attracted to. He was definitely an alpha male, take control type of guy. So then they had Aaron. Aaron was player from the Himalayas. Okay, he was a creep. And actually several women ended up quitting the show because they couldn't deal with Aaron and his lies and just a mess. And then the third guy name was Alex, and Alex kind of reminded me of my daughter's father. Very nice guy, very low key. He was a business owner. I think he runs a trucking company. But at the end of the season, or after the season ended, at the end of the season, Alex developed some type of brain flu. I've never heard of the brain flu, but it reminded me of a condition that my sister came down with back in 1992. And she was actually in a coma, I think, for like almost 3 months. It was a really long time. And then she had to go through rehab. And she was hospitalized for a very long time, but it was sudden. It was like we had gone to, remember when Wendy's used to have the buffet, the salad buffet? We had eaten off that salad buffet. And then the next day, my sister was sick. She was vomiting, had diarrhea and everything. And we finally took her to the hospital. She slipped into a coma like 2 days before Thanksgiving. And she did not come home from the hospital till like February or March. I remember she was there when my daughter was born, and my daughter's birthday is April 2nd. So she may have came home maybe 2 or 3 weeks before my daughter was born. But I know it was a very scary time. They actually went in and took a specimen from her brain stem because they could not figure out what was wrong with her or give it a name. And I think they finally said she had some form of viral meningitis is what it was. But the way they were talking about Alex's condition, it sounded a lot like what my sister went through. So, still praying for Alex. They say he's doing better. I don't know what better means. But he was one of the nicer guys on the show, and I liked him a lot. And I think the show was picked up for season 2, and I was thinking, like, if the show comes back, I should do like a betting pool. You know how they do the football pools every week with the football games? I think I'm going to start a pool, and we bet on who the couples are going to be, because I actually picked, Mike ended up with the girl Shay. I picked them from day one. Like, their chemistry was off the charts. And then Aaron, I was very surprised that he made it to the end of the show. But what happened to Aaron was exactly what I expected. He wasn't going to end up with anybody. And then Alex, I don't even remember like Ashley being on my radar, because she's the girl that he ended up with. But when I started picking up on Ashley, I felt their chemistry, even though he was after the lady named Tiffany, and I couldn't understand why he was with Tiffany. So I thought all in all, it was a really good show. I'm sure they're going to tweak some things as it goes along, because what would happen at the end of the show each week, Nephew Tommy would sit down with the guys, kind of get their feel for what was going on, what were they thinking about the ladies, which lady did they think they were going to eliminate. And I can't remember if he sat down with the ladies every week, or if it was like every other week, or he would just haphazardly bring the women together and sit down and talk with them. But I think overall it was a good representation of what the dating pool is for African American men and women, especially when the men are trying to date Black women. And I did like the fact that they didn't have white women or Hispanic women or Asian women, that all the women were African American. Now, I thought it was interesting that when the show first started, the guys were talking, and they were saying that they are not turned on by all of the hair weave and the makeup. And, one day the woman has braids in her hair. The next day, she got hair down to her butt. And so they were kind of critical of that. And I thought it was interesting that when the show ended, that the women that were left on the show were kind of representative of more of a natural feel. Like, they weren't over the top with their makeup and over the top with the hair and everything. And if you guys have ever watched my recaps for To Rome for Love that aired on Bravo, in the first recap that I did, I pointed out how Black women have this tendency to represent themselves with their accomplishments. Like, you don't really get to know who they are and what they're like as a person, because they see themselves through their careers, through their academic achievements, through their sororities and other organizations that they belong to. And that was kind of like highlighted in the beginning of the season with Ready to Love. And those women were quickly eliminated from the show. And there was one lady, she was a doctor. Let me see if I can find what her name was. One of my favorite characters on the show, I shouldn't say characters, but one of my favorite people on the show was Melinda. And Melinda reminded me of myself. I ain't got time to be wasting. I'm going to call you out on your BS, and then I'm going to keep it moving. And she was the first one, I think, that eliminated herself from the show because she was sick of Aaron and all of his lies. What was that woman's name? She was a doctor. Was it Dr. Lexi? Was she the only doctor? Was Lexi the only doctor? So I think it was Dr. Lexi. So she was very, she came across as overconfident, but then by the time she made her exit, you could see her insecurities. And she was a prime example of someone that was representing their accomplishments but not letting anybody in to really get to know who she was. And every week she had different hairstyles, she had different makeup going on, and the men just were not feeling that. And so she, I think it was her and Alex that were out on the date, and he pretty much was telling her that, you know, he didn't like her attitude. He didn't feel that they were able to get to know her. And then she blew up and said that, you know, she wasn't going to change for anybody. You have to accept her, you know, as she is, you know, take the complete package or don't take her at all, which I agree with. You know, if you're secure in who you are and someone doesn't like that, then yeah, move on. And then at the reunion show, she did say that after the show, she did meet someone and that they are pretty serious. I can't remember if she said they were engaged or not, but I know she's in a serious relationship. So by the time they dwindled it down to the 3 guys and the 12 ladies, and as the show went on and they started eliminating the ladies, I thought it was interesting that towards the end, when it probably was about 8 women left or 6 women left, that it seemed like it was the women were older than the men, and the age range on the group was like 30 to 40, mid 40s. And so the guys, I think, were all in their 30s, like mid 30s, but some of the women were in their 40s. And even though we liked Mike and Shay a lot, Mike wanted to have babies. Mike was like 34 or 37. He was in his 30s. Shay was 44. Shay had a baby, had a son, a grown son, 18. And she said she didn't want to have any more kids. So we were like, okay, well, how y'all gonna work through this? Because she's 44 years old, so she ain't having no more babies. And then Mike is over here saying that he wants to have his own child. He wants to be married. Like, how are y'all gonna work this out? But then by the end of the show, Shay said that she was willing to have a baby. But what she revealed on the show was that she got pregnant with this guy, really liked the guy, thought the guy was going to be there, and in so many cases he left, you know, like so many instances he left. So she was there with this baby by herself. She developed postpartum depression, and she said it was the worst time in her life. It was horrific. You know, she finally beat the depression, got through all of that, got back on her feet. And she raised her son, and she was very intentional about raising her son because she wanted him to be a productive citizen. She wanted to be a present parent, but she had to make a lot of sacrifices to provide for the 2 of them. And so now he's 18, a however old, and she's like, I'm not starting over again. Like, you got to show me something. And the sad thing about that is Mike seemed like a great guy. He seems to really like Shay, but there are no guarantees that you're going to stay together, that it is going to work out. But she said that they're going to have a baby. She hopes it's twins. So we'll see how that works with Mike and Shay. But what do you guys think? Would you have made that sacrifice? Like, do you think you, in your 40s, dating a man in his 30s, would be willing to start all over as far as having children? I mean, I'm 54, but I know in my 40s, I wouldn't try to have no more babies. I had my last baby when I was 27, and I knew there would be no more after that. So good luck for Mike and Shay. Let's hope they work it out. Then with Aaron, like I said, Aaron was player. He was talking. What I hated about him, the fact that he was a player was bad enough, but he was a messy player. Because now remember, he's dating different women, but they would go out on group dates, and he would talk about the women that weren't on the group date with the women that were on the group date. Then he was telling all the women that they were his number 1 choice. They didn't have nothing to worry about. He was just all over the place. Like, these women are not communicating and talking with each other because they would get together and hang out and do stuff together, you know, as part of the cast members on the show. And so, like I said, there were like 3 women that quit because they were sick of Aaron and his lies. And then he ended up at the end with this chick named Stormy. And I really liked Stormy a lot, but I thought Stormy and Pastor Chris made a good connection on the show. And then at the reunion, we found out that they had been talking after the show ended. So maybe Stormy and Pastor Chris would end up together. But Stormy, like second to the last episode, she cussed Aaron out and said, "I'm out." So then the chick, who Angel claimed she was hip to the game and knew what was going on, but she was kind of like wavering on the fence. So she kind of like won out by default because everybody else quit. So when they got to the reunion show, we found out that they had decided to just be friends. And I could kind of relate to Ashley in some aspects because I have dated guys where I liked them, but I knew that they were not potential husband or boyfriend material. But you want to help them along and like encourage them and tell them that, when you do this to a woman, you're not going to get the results that you want, and you're at an age where you need to sit down and stop. So I kind of related to that. And I was happy when she said that, she wasn't trying to date Aaron, that they were just friends. And I think by the time the reunion show ended, they probably wasn't friends either, because he was out there. Well, no, let me take that back, because he was acting an ass in the beginning, but then at the end, he did apologize to everybody and say that, he needed to work on himself, and he now understands how the women could have felt the way that they felt. But that probably was a front also, because he realized he was looking bad on national TV and women were watching this show, and then he probably will have a hard time picking up a new girl when the show ended. So then there was Alex. So Alex had narrowed it down to this chick, Tiffany, and Ashley. So him and Ashley were closer in age, and Tiffany owned her own business, but she was older than Alex. And the two of them, it was just no chemistry, and they were always arguing and bickering with each other. And I think that Alex's attraction to Tiffany had a lot to do with, I don't know if you guys have ever met men who, they have this image in their head, this checklist of, what a woman needs. And so Alex owned his own business. So he probably was thinking, okay, Tiffany is a business owner. She can relate to, what it means to have your own business and the sacrifices that you have to make. And she can keep me grounded, and she can guide me, and we can build this, empire together, and we can be this couple, this power couple. Whereas Tiffany, I think, was like a speech therapist. And somebody had asked about, Tiffany kept talking about her father and how much she loved her father, and her father had died. And I found out after the reunion that her father was actually murdered. And I'm thinking, my God, that was horrible. But Ashley's mom was really, really pretty and looked like she could be her sister. And then she had like 4 brothers. That was a whole interesting dynamic. But anyway, Ashley was the speech pathologist. And I just don't think that I just didn't think that Alex, even though he was attracted to her, saw, like, I don't know, how can I put this? Like, Ashley would be the girl, like the girl from around the way, the home girl that a guy might cheat with, because she brings out, that energy in him. But when it comes to paper, what he has on the paper, all his checklists, Tiffany was what he was looking for, if that makes any sense. But they bumped heads. They couldn't get along. Tiffany was always angry. And what I thought was crazy on this show was that they knew they had to be on this show, which was like 10 or 11 weeks long. They knew they couldn't pick somebody in the beginning, even if you liked that person, that you had to carry it all the way through. But everybody was catching feelings. Everybody wanted the guys to say, okay, you're my choice. I ain't going to talk to these other women. And that's just not how it was set up. So I don't know how they're going to combat that in the second season. But it was crazy, because even Mike and Shay had an incident, like to the second to last episode, when she blew all up and was upset and was like, well, I'm gonna leave, and he told her to take her MFing ass on. And I was like, hey, how you gonna talk to her like that? But he ended up running after her and, apologizing and, telling her he was wrong for what he said. But they were on a show, they have a commitment, they got to play this thing through. And so when they went back in the house, the other girl, Shatavia, she, said, okay, well, I can't compete with that, so I'm going to leave. And so Tiffany, I guess she thought that, okay, well, let me pull a shade on Alex and see if he will, stand up and say, okay, I want you, I'm not going to go with Ashley. Child, he told her to take her butt on, but he was so disrespectful to her when they would get into arguments. He was one of those guys that cut to the bone when he get in an argument. Like he was all sweet and quiet and innocent and nice, but then when he got to arguing, he would pick that thing. He kind of like saved that thing that he knew was gonna like cut at you, and then he threw that out in the argument. And so he was basically telling. So she was like, if I'm not your number one, he was like, well, no, you're not my number one. And then he told her one time they was arguing that she said, because you ain't going to find another woman like me. And then he was like, I done had better women than you. And he was just like, I said, oh my God, but this is the kind of stuff that happens in real life. So we can't be mad about it. So she ended up, I think she quit. She was like, you ain't got to choose. No, she calmed down, I think, after the last argument. They were all having dinner, and then nephew Tommy was going around the table, trying to get their thoughts on, okay, now we down to the wire. We want you guys to, like, when they picked the last person, they had to have a date where they took them to meet their family. So it was the episode before that, and Alex and Tiffany had this argument, and so she was sitting there, I guess, thinking that Alex was getting ready to choose her, but then he started complimenting Ashley, and so she got upset that he was complimenting Ashley. So they had their last little hoorah, and that was the end of that. And so Alex ended up with Ashley, which I'm thinking was probably for the best, because I don't think when he became ill and was hospitalized in the coma and everything, Tiffany didn't strike me as the type that would stick around and support him, whereas Ashley was like, we haven't known each other. We didn't really get a chance to, to be together before all of this happened. But I love him. I'm there for him. I'm going to support him. I'm going to be by his side, to see him through all of this. I'm in it for the long haul. And I just did not see Tiffany being that person. So overall, I think that I like the show. I like the concept of it. People were saying that it was bootleg, that it was cheap, but I liked the concept. The only thing was they couldn't be on social media. I don't think they could be seen out too much or tell people where they were as far as the relationship was going. And so they were saying that was the hardest part. But, it didn't really interrupt their lives. They could still continue on with their lives and everything. I don't know. Like, what do you guys think about the whole concept of this guy gets to date 4 women, right? But the women couldn't date the other guys once they narrowed it down to the 3 guys. And then the guys getting together and as a group, talking about their experiences from the week and deciding as a group which woman was going to be sent home. Like, what did you guys think about that? Like, did you like that idea? Did you think that the show had like a chauvinistic appeal to it? I'd just be interested to see what the women thought about it. I know I enjoyed it because I thought it was a good representation of what dating is like for real. And what I would like to see is if they do a season 2 that, and I know it's for production reasons that they did it in Atlanta because it's supposed to be very cheap to do shows in Atlanta, but I would like to see them move it around and go to different cities, so that we can see the whole dynamics of dating, because I think that dating in Atlanta might be different than dating in Tampa, and dating in Tampa might be different than dating in New York. You know what I'm saying? Or dating out in California, or dating a friend of mine's daughter and her son-in-law are moving to Iowa. Who knew? Okay, but what is dating like in Iowa, for Black people? So I would like to see them rotate the show around. I can't think of anything that I really would have changed, even with the 3 guys that we were left with. I really thought that, the women got to choose the guys that were eliminated. And I think it spoke a lot about the women that Aaron was one of the guys that was chosen, because all of us sitting at home was like, Aaron is a creep. Like, why are y'all choosing Aaron to stay on the show? I mean, he's a buster, and so I don't know, they chose him. And then I thought that, I didn't like the part about the family when they went to meet the family, because Mike took Shay to meet some friend of his that was a shaman, like a African root doctor or something. And so he was basically foretelling their future. Shay took Mike to meet her mother. Then Aaron was going to take Ashley. Not was her name Ashley? It was Allison? Child, I'm getting the names. Shay, Ashley, and Tiffany. I might be getting the names. No, Ashley was Alex. What was that girl named? Angel? I know her name began with an A. Whoever was the girl that won by default with Aaron, he was going to introduce her to his son, but then he decided at the last minute that he didn't like her enough to introduce her to the son. And then I don't remember if she ever introduced him to her family. I don't remember that episode if he did. So they didn't get to meet each other's family. When it came to Alex and Tiffany, I remember Alex going to meet Tiffany's family, but did Tiffany go and meet? Yeah, she did. She met Alex's sister and father or sister. Yeah, she did. So they did meet. I'm sorry, you guys. It's been 2 weeks. They did meet each other's family, so that was a good look. But the Aaron thing was messed up, and then Mike not inviting Shay to meet his family, but meeting this shaman guy, I thought was kind of like a cop-out. But anyway, guys, that was it for me. If you watched Ready to Love, let me know what you thought about the first season. Are you in for a second season? Rate the video, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And until the next time, I shall talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.